Steve, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks, Chris. How are you?
Yes, I'm super, mate. It's great to be chatting again. Um,
Yeah, it is.
we chatted, the first time we chatted was after you had your book come out, wasn't it? When the bells go down.
That was the second book. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you wrote two books about your time in the London Fire Brigade.
yeah,
I remember we
yeah,
chatted about how things changed, didn't we? How it all got a bit managerial and
yeah,
it kind of lost a lot of the spirit of the old days.
yeah. It did. Yeah.
But we've always kept in touch, haven't we, with respect to our spiritual journeys. And
Oh, yeah,
it's funny how us oldies, we're all roads sort of start leading to Rome.
yeah,
You gave me some great notes. What's going on in this country? The spiritual world, the third eye, pineal gland, and meditation, indigenous tribes, the big club, including Enil and Enki, religion, Elon Musk, and Freemasonry. So, should we just go for it?
yeah. Why not? Why not?
Yes. So, when you say what's going on in the country, what's your thoughts on that, Steve?
Oh, I'm just seeing the state we're in now at the moment. The politicians seem to have lost their grip. At the moment, I wouldn't trust them to look after a hamster, and they're supposed to be looking after our country and our population. But the way things are going. I
Recording
mean, I
in
know
progress.
yeah. And it's worldwide, but just because this is local for us, it just makes you wonder where it's all going to end. I really fear now for my grandson. What sort of world is he going to grow up in?
Mate, you're not the only one. I get a lot of these sort of. I get a lot of people say that to me. Um,
Yeah,
it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I
yeah, but like you've said before, Chris, I'm pretty sure it seems like a lot of it's planned. To have a certain effect on people and make them behave in a certain way.
yeah, I'd say there's no doubt. There's no doubt it's planned. um,
Yeah,
but there's two things going on here, Steve, aren't there? Is first of all, it's understanding what's going on in society and why we're in the situation we're in and why there's clearly great evil in the world. You just look at the last 3 years of the medical stuff. I mean, you can clearly
oh yeah,
see there's bad people out there doing bad stuff.
yeah,
For whatever reason, everyone's going to have a different view. The second thing we got going on, which is why it's great to have you on the show, is the spiritual battle.
mm,
And from that
yeah,
perspective, you could say, well, hang on, always look through history until probably from the Garden of Eden when mankind got its sense of self
yeah,
and its ability to reflect on ourselves, which animals don't have,
yeah,
that things started going wrong. And you could say that this great evil has always been with us from then. Therefore, how much of what we need to do is addressing this great evil, exposing it, which loads of people are starting to do now in social media. I think everyone's fed up with, every time they try and question something, you just get called anti-Semitic and, everyone shits themselves that they're going to be thought of as a racist. And that's always been a mechanism that the big club have used to shut people up. But the other point is, if this evil has always been there in some form, we can't let it affect us. Because in this set of molecules, Steve, as life experiencing itself, we don't want to be depressed our whole life. We want to have a nice time with the grandkids. We
mm,
we want to go out in the nature and not be thinking about chemtrails and you know, the medical stuff and
Yeah.
so I'm just sort of laying the table out here, aren't I,
Yeah.
for where
Yeah. Yeah.
how we've got to see this. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are that they don't want, and it's like you say, it's gone back since like Garden of Eden. They don't want us getting too clever. They don't want us waking up and realizing what's going on around us. And if we do start to wake up and do things to try to correct what they're doing, they'll shut us down somehow or other. I mean, at the moment, it's social media, isn't it? Because that's a great way for people to communicate. You know, I mean, going back to like ancient times when they sent people all over the, four corners of the world and everyone spoke different languages and couldn't communicate. And we've got the same thing now. We had social media and we started to use it, to our benefit. And now that's been shut down, you know. But yeah, it seems like, I mean, I've been listening to people like Billy Carson, Graham Hancock, Joe Rogan, and listening to what they've got to say. And they're all telling the same story, basically, you know, about how we've always been controlled. You've always got those people at the top. And that's where the Anil and Enki come in. And now you've got the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds controlling everything. And they're at the top and we are just the workers. And you can't let the workers become too clever, you know? So where that's concerned, yeah, that's where I'm at. But with like spiritualism, that's our way out. That's our way around all this nonsense, because we can get above that and we can see things for how they really are. And I think more and more people are waking up now and realizing that, hang on a minute, no, this is what's happening, and we don't have to suffer that. But it's a difficult thing, as you know. You talk to people, you might talk to 20 people in a day, and out of that 20 people, you might be lucky to find one that's actually on the same level, and the others they sort of give you sort of funny look and like you're mad, like they did with David Icke when he first started speaking up.
Yes. Do you understand when I talk about the difference between being awake and being spiritually enlightened?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've listened to you obviously for a long time now, and when you're saying about the universe experiencing itself, oh yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that. And the thing is, as well, is okay. So just over a year and a few days ago, my dad died. Okay, and okay, the physical body is not there anymore. Okay, so he went from being visible to invisible. Okay, he's still with me. He's still with me every day because all them emotions, all that love, all their memories and everything else, they're all still there. They didn't go anywhere. Okay. And like you say, you go back to being the universe. Well, we are part of the universe. So it's all around us all the time. You can't escape it, really, even if you wanted to. You know?
Yes. This is what in scripture, so when Jesus is saying, and don't quote me on this, but something like, if you want to come to me, you've got to forget your family, you've got to forget your loved ones, da 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 da. I don't think he was meaning like you've got to be a complete psychopath. I think he was meaning you've got to understand we're all energy, vibration, and frequency.
Yeah.
And that technically
Yeah.
we are the all, the everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And we can't go anywhere as such. We might change form.
Well, yeah, but I think when the physical body leaves, then the spirit goes back to the universe where it come from, and we become part of that again. And whether we start again somewhere else or something else, I don't know. But yeah, that's what I believe. But talking about Jesus, I think personally, I think the Bible's been manipulated grossly. Because they've taken it from the ancient scriptures and the tablets, okay, and they've added bits to suit their own narrative. They've left bits out, that was a bit inconvenient, you know. So I think when people read the Bible, they read in like it's a version, it's an edited version of what really happened. Yeah, I'm not saying none of this stuff happened, because you know, undoubtedly it did, but there was so much more that's been left out, you know. Um, and again, I'll link that. I've started to link that to the big club, because it's a way of keeping everyone where they want us to be. You know, you've heard people saying, "Oh, he's a good God-fearing man." You know, well, nobody should fear God. And again, in the Bible, it mentions God, and as you know, there is not a God. There's the universe, creator of all, and all the others are what they call gods, and they're just beings masquerading as gods and getting us to do what they want us to do. Is that a bit heavy?
No, I think you're spot on, mate. I think what's kind of overlooked and not really considered enough is that you had the Roman Empire, which kind of took over the known world, and of course, when that withdrew, the question is, did it leave behind like a sort of surreptitious infrastructure that we can't see? And by that, what I mean is, I'm strongly of the belief that the Roman Empire wasn't so much, you know, these greedy Italians or ambitious Italians coming out of Rome. I think it was more an apparatus that the big club were well behind. And I think when you see the Roman historians, what you're really seeing is a manipulation of history, of energy, of vibration, of the frequency. They implemented a story of Jesus, as in almost you could say like a linear story of a guy's life, which of course we're not saying Jesus didn't live. Perhaps that was Yeshua or whatever. Maybe there was a really nice guy that lived 2,000 years ago. Yeah, that's not the issue. The issue is through their Vatican, which they created, they completely cut people off from spirit, from opening up the endocrine glands, the serotonin, the DMT that you mentioned, the pineal gland, and truly accessing heaven on earth, which is what Jesus was trying to teach people. And it's ironic, isn't it, that when you look at the Vatican, they've actually got the pine cone, which represents the pineal, the pine cone that opens up. It actually looks a bit like the pineal. And they've got a sarcophagus behind it, symbolizing that until you're awake, you're dead, which is what the Egyptians practiced. And you've actually got the two peacocks either side. And I think the peacock symbology is the eye on the tail feathers, representing again the third eye, the pineal and the pituitary. So
they knew. You know, it's not a new thing. It's just something they've been hiding for so long, but it's been hidden in plain view, if you like, because all the symbols are all around us all the time. You know, wherever you go, you're going to see symbols that relate to the same thing. But the Vatican, you know, how rich is the Vatican? How much money has the Vatican got? What's in the vaults of the Vatican that no one's allowed to see? You know, and you know, when you look at all the troubles in the world forever, it's been caused by so-called religion. Because one man says, "This is how I want you to be. This is what's good. This is what's bad." If you don't believe and you don't do what's good, something terrible is going to happen to you. Right, so they've got people frightened and they've got people scared, and then they've got people fighting each other as well in the name of their God. It's madness, mate. You can't make it up, can you?
They do.
Yeah, they do. But so many people, I mean, come on. Wake up, as they say, and see what's going on. Was it wake up and taste the coffee or something, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah. Wake up and smell the Nescafe.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, they've got people, and like Elon Musk, right? There's something about Elon Musk, and they don't like him. Okay. And it's the same as Nikola Tesla when they shut Nikola Tesla down because he had discovered something and invented something that was going to be good for everybody, but the chosen few weren't going to make any money from it. They were going to lose money. They just shut him down. And I think that's what they're going to try to do to Elon Musk. I mean, they've already talked about shutting X down, because he gave people a platform for freedom of speech.
It's interesting to know what, though, isn't it, Elon Musk? Because he's kind of playing a few different games here. By that, I mean, he's got to have his hand in with the space race, isn't he? Because that's his thing, is we're going to send people to Mars. So he's got to kind of like go along with the NASA narrative, which I'm not saying this, but many would say is just a massive freaking lie. You know, people going to other planets in tin cans filled with fossil fuel. So you've got that. Then you've got the issue of people are always looking for this hero in society, whether it's Elon or whether it's Jordan Peterson or whether it's Tommy. But my question would be, when do they talk about energy, frequency, and vibration? When do they talk about?
No, they don't. Well, I don't know. I think, yeah. I mean, I think Elon Musk, he must be aware of it. You know, he's a clever bloke. But talk energy, vibration, and frequency. I'm started to get back into my spiritual, you know, the intuition, that sort of stuff. And I think I told you tarot and all the rest of it. And I do a lot with crystals as well, because crystals are energy, vibration, and frequency. Do you know what I mean? It's like a telephone to the universe, basically.
Yeah, I've never really sort of looked into the crystal thing. Not because I'm like ignorant or something, but there's just only so much time in your lifetime to look at certain things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But I am learning that the tarot, there's an awful lot of esoteric stuff packed into those cards, is there not?
Oh, Christ, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, big time. A lot of symbology. And again, most people wouldn't have a clue. You know, they could look at the cards and wouldn't mean a thing, but they're absolutely full of symbology. A lot of the symbology in tarot cards is used in Freemasonry as well, believe it or not.
What like?
So there's a link there somewhere. And Baphomet, okay, which everyone thinks is a devil and it isn't. This is the thing, you see, Chris. We've been made to believe and programmed to believe what's good and what's evil. And if something's a little bit, you know, if they consider something to be a little bit too good, we can't have that. We can't have that. Okay, we'll call that Satan. We'll call that the devil. Well, Baphomet and that's who the Templars worshipped. Okay, you know, it's Templar. And there's a link with the Templars and Freemasonry as well. Because once people have gone through the first 3 degrees and then they can go into what they call chapter, which becomes a little bit, I don't know anything about chapter, but it's another level of Freemasonry, you know, that's linked to the Templars. And they worship God, or there's a lot of mention of God, you know, they're religious. It's a religious organisation, but they call God the great architect of the universe. They don't say God or Allah or Buddha or, you know, whatever. They don't say that. They say the architect of the universe, the creator of all. And that is the one true God, isn't it?
Yes.
So yeah, it's all linked up somehow. I mean, you know, I can't, like you said right at the start, Chris, you know, we get to a certain age and we start to question everything. I just wish I'd started questioning things when I was 20, because I might sort of have half a clue what was going on now. But I'm 61 now, and by the time I find out what's going on, it'll be my turn to go back to the universe.
Yeah, we mustn't forget that all of this, it's all lessons about living in the present, isn't it? That's one of the big things I take away from it. It's about the fact that there isn't a future. Because when, say that future's there, and we're all looking forward to that day when we know everything and we got the answers, and the big club have all been sent packing. You know, their methods no longer work. Did it? Well, hang on a sec. That won't be the future. That'll be the now then. And when we're in that now, there'll be people looking forward to the new now, which is the future, and that's so. The chap, his name's gonna escape me. The little, I'm gonna say German guy, great philosopher and coach. His name will come to me anyway, but he says the secret is realizing that there isn't the future, there is the now, because when the future arrives, it will be the.
Now. Yeah. But that's the thing. That's the other thing as well. I mean, looking back at ancient or getting people who have been able to read the ancient scriptures and tablets. You know about the Tower of Babel, don't you? Or Babel, yeah, that was destroyed because the workers replicated what had been there before to use it to their benefit, and it was destroyed. And then, who was it? I think that might have been Enlil. And he said he changed the DNA to make a man's lifespan 120 years and no more. If everything was perfect and they lived a perfect life, they could live to 120 years and that'd be it. So that by the time these people have worked it out and started to make things better for themselves, that was time for them to go. You know, they don't want people getting too clever. Whereas, you know, when you look at ancient civilizations, you know, they lived for thousands of years. Some kings ruled for thousands of years. And yet our years were 120.
Yeah, there's so much we can say about this, mate. So first of all, I've got this idea. Like I tried to say this in a podcast with Stuart the other day, is we don't get it. We're so fixed in our narratives that if anyone dare say, have you thought about this? It's like, no, shut up. You're part of the New World Order. And it's like, no. Being open-minded is what it's all about. And what I was trying to say the other day is, regardless of whether you think climate change is man-made or not, we should acknowledge that we are burning billions of tons of fossil fuel. I don't know in what time span, but we're taking tons and tons of precious resources out of the earth. And remember, I'm talking from the perspective that the earth is a torus field. Like we have a torus field in our brain between the pituitary, which is the magnet, and the pineal, which is the electric, you know, and I might have got that a bit wrong, but like we're a torus field, we're within a torus field. The earth has a two poles, two magnetic poles. It has a sun creating the electrical energy, and the notion that we can drastically change this ecosphere, this environment, and there's going to be no repercussions. Like I'd say that's something that we should be considering, right? I'm not saying that man-made climate change is the be-all, and I'm not even saying that. I'm saying that, you know, if you keep bees, and I come in and say, Steve, I want some of that wax, mate. You need to take a bit of that out. Your bees are a bit, right, you know. And I come back the next day, Steve, just a little bit more of that wax that they're making now. You know, just take a bit more of that out. Oh, Steve, hang on a second. Just taking a bit more because I'm using this for me industry and to build buildings and send people, pretend to send people in space and have plastic and buy some new grips from a BMX and, you know, just eventually you're going to go, Chris. I'm a bit worried here. My beehive's all going to fold in, mate. I'm just being honest with you. Could we have a chat about this? And what I'm saying, Steve, is when people get stuck in their narratives, and there's good guys and bad guys and which there are, but you're stopping conversation. You're stopping the discussion dead. And when I look at the looks like we lost you a bit. You've just come back. When I'm looking at the scripture and I'm looking at like Tower of Babel, which was man getting so clever, thinking he could build a tower to God and he would be God, and then Sodom and Gomorrah comes around, which is all your filth and your porn and your people putting money before spirituality. And I'm just wondering if this is an allegorical tale of why civilizations that have gone before failed, because eventually the earth has to cleanse them, aka the big flood. Exactly. Not literally a flood, but it could be. Is that the planet goes, listen, you dickheads, you always think you're so clever and you don't learn a lesson. If you look in the scripture, it says there you're gonna destroy yourselves. And I'm thinking that, mate.
And I think it's due. I think it's overdue. I think the next, as you say, like reset is overdue because there's so many bad things going on in the world now, and I think that people have got together and they've got. Like you said, what people are doing now, not just to the planet, but to each other, it can't go on. It just can't go on. You know, it's got to end somewhere. And when I say it's overdue,
friends at home, Steve's breaking up a bit here, so we just pause the recording. We're going to try and continue. But we might have to move your location, Steve, closer to your Wi-Fi or something. But yes, we were saying, weren't we, that people get so stuck in their narratives. Everything, like the whole chemtrail thing. Everyone's got a different idea of what they are.
Oh, wow.
And, you know.
Go
on.
I was going to give you a call this morning because when I went outside to have a look around, they've been really busy today. So you watch it cloud over later on and rain tonight, you know. But when you talk to people about these chemtrails and they think you're mad, you're a conspiracy theorist. But, you know, it doesn't take a lot of working out.
Yeah, and this is probably one of the reasons why society keeps smashing itself to bits and then having to restart again. It's that question, isn't it? Why are people so detached? And is it even our job, Steve, to try and wake people up? Because it's such negative energy trying to talk to someone who doesn't want to listen. And it gets us down and it destroys our day. And it's just an interesting question.
But every now and then you come across like a diamond glittering amongst the coal, you know, because the vast majority of the population, no disrespect to anybody, but they're just shuffling through life in a stupor. either don't know or don't care what's going on because it's too difficult to try to think about it. So they just carry on. But every now and then you come across someone who's clued up and knows what's going on. And that's refreshing. And I think that's what makes it worthwhile. And if they can then talk to somebody. But I always say to people, when they say they don't believe that they're chemtrails, I say, okay, so when a plane used to go over and leave a vapor trail, like a contrail, it used to disappear as quickly as it appeared. It'd follow the plane along. It wouldn't get any longer. It'd just evaporate as it was being made, because that's vapor. That's what vapor does. But these things, they just don't disappear. They're there all day long, and then they spread out. So that's not vapor,
It's more than
just a simple. Yeah, go on.
Well, it's more than that, Steve. It's the other day I was at an adventure park and I looked up at the sky and I said to the person I'm with, look, there's a patch of blue sky. There was one patch where they hadn't got it. And it was really blue. It was almost like lockdown blue, I call it, when they had no planes flying, right? And that blue that we had at childhood, right? And you looked at the rest of the sky and it was that milky, sickly yuck that the trailing does. And just as I said it, two planes just went right in that blue patch, mate. And it was gone.
Gone, yeah.
And the question is, why? What?
Personally, I think it's that they want to be able to manipulate the weather. It's a control thing, like they want to be able to control the weather. How freaky is that? And block out the sun. They're blocking out the healthy sun and the vitamin D that we should be getting from it. Because I can't see any benefit. Our plants, they need the sun and for photosynthesis and all the rest of it, and they're blocking that out. So there's an ulterior motive there somewhere, and it's not for the good of us, not for the good of the planet. Because as the plants and everything else, they help balance up the CO2 and oxygen levels. All right, so if they can't reproduce because they're not getting the sun's light that they need, that's making things worse. It's not making things better.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, Chris. It's just it's mind blowing. Mind blowing.
You talked about Enlil. Is it Eni and Enki?
Enlil, yeah, Enlil
and
Enki. Yeah.
Right.
This is even more.
Yeah, sorry. Just like what were you meaning?
Even more mind blowing. Well, they was two people that were masquerading as gods, basically. If you look at what the old, and I haven't looked at them, but I've listened and read people that have, and they've deciphered the scriptures and the tablets. They talk about the star people, like indigenous tribes, like the Aborigines and the Native American Indians and the people who live in the rainforest and the Amazon and all the rest of it. They all talk about these sky people, sky gods who came from above. Okay, and the story goes is that they came to this planet to mine gold because they needed it for the good of their planet because they'd ruined their atmosphere. So the person that came down and was in charge of everything, they called him Anu, and that's where the word Anunnaki comes from, which is aliens basically. And then he had two sons, Enlil and Enki. And Enlil was the evil one, and he's the one who wanted to just wipe out races and areas because he didn't like the way they were going, didn't like the way they were becoming advanced and all that. So he'd just wipe out, he'd spray crops to kill their crops, he'd send plagues to where they were to wipe them out, that sort of thing. Enki was the good one. He was the good brother, and he had empathy with sort of what you called Homo sapiens, I suppose, like us, like the workers. because that's what we were made for. We were made to be the workers. And he had empathy with us, and he tried to help and all the rest of it. So Lil killed him, killed his own brother, you know, because he didn't want anybody helping the workers. He wanted to be able to control everything. So that's my take on it. You know, I've probably got things wrong, but that's from what I've read and Enki, before he was murdered, was the one who actually told Noah. I forget what they called him now. His name wasn't Noah; it was something else. And he said to him about building the ark because he knew that the flood was coming to wipe everything out and start again. And that's when he told him, take your family and your animals and some seeds and stuff like that, so that when the floods subside, you know, you can sort of start again. So yeah, that's my take on things. But it goes a lot deeper than that, you know, far too deep to go into here and now. And there's people out there that are just so clued up.
Yes.
That they can go wrong.
So I'm just having a look, friends at home, just having a look at a bit of this sort of scripture, because it comes from Sumeria. I think this was inscribed on the tablets.
Yeah, Sumerian tablets, yeah.
Or some of the tablets, I should say.
And you've got the emerald tablets.
Yes. I just draw people's attention to this. This is the way or one of the factors I bring into things, but it's saying here, then follows from the creation of the deluge, so I'm guessing that means the flood, the period of the 10 primeval kings, which lasted 432,000 years. Now, if you add the 4, the 3, and the 2, you get 9, don't you, in numerology? And 9 is the number of, I call it the number of the universe. It's like 666 is like the universe to the in the 3D matrix, like where the devil gets you, hence 666, but it reduces to 9. And then the 144,000 people shall ascend to heaven, to, you know, live in paradise on earth. That's again 9, isn't it? 1 plus the 4 is 9. So when you see in scripture, you see this numerology. This is why I'm much more in thinking that this is just a text written by clever people that got it all, and they use this number code because it's universal. Once you crack the code, it's universally understood and can be handed down, you know, for generations and generations. But then you are going to get people that were like, no, these Enki and Anil were actual God. They actually lived in the time of giants. And I'm not saying they did or they didn't. I'm just adding another angle on it, really.
Yeah, well, they from my understanding, they masqueraded as gods. Yeah, they were bigger than us. I'm not saying they were giants, but they were bigger, probably. Looked a bit different, but sort of more or less the same. But they were beings. They weren't gods. They were beings. But if you went back even just 200 years with the technology that we've got now, they think you was a god. You could masquerade as a god.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's what I think it was. You know, they weren't gods. And that's the other thing. You know, in the Bible, and God, I'm quoting someone here, and I can't remember which one of them it is. I think it was Billy Carson. And he said in the Bible, like, you know, God is good and never changing. God never changes. Okay. But it also says you mustn't worship false prophets. If you worship a false prophet, God will smite you. So it's all good and never changing. But if you don't worship him, if you worship someone else, he'll kill you. You know, it's full of contradictions.
Yes, yes, a lot of misunderstood stuff, I think, in scripture.
Yeah, and that again tells me that what they call God in the religious texts, not just the Bible, religious texts, weren't really gods. They were people manipulating other people to keep everyone under control and doing the work. And they're still doing it now. Still doing it now to this day. And those people at the top there of the big club probably are direct descendants from those beings, from your Enki's and your Enlils and your Gilgamesh and all the rest of it. I think Enlil was in the Bible is referred to as Yahweh. So if anyone is into reading their Bible, have a look in the Bible and see what it says about Yahweh. But he was pretty evil.
Yeah, there's something to be said also for. I I think when people are in that fourth dimension of consciousness, so they're no longer in the matrix. They've awoken to the fact that life's not really fair, and there's controllers out there that don't have our best interests at heart. When you're in that fourth dimension, before you've made that move into, new consciousness, where you view stuff in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, and how you can affect change that way, I think when you're in the fourth dimension, you're desperately looking for like every single theory. I'm not going to say conspiracy theory, but you do run the risk of being what Robbie Williams calls a red pillock. As in, you're desperate that everybody believes all your theories and whatever that might be. And the reason I'm saying this is, does it really matter what gods may or may not have lived in what form, however, big club, does any of that matter if you're drinking 2 bottles of wine a night?
No.
Does any of that matter if you're anxious or depressed? Does any of that matter if you don't exercise? You're just a sedentary human being. You're not breathing properly. You're not refreshing the neurons in your brain and your serotonin and your DMT. Does any of that matter if you're a bit of a boring person to be around because you're always on about bloody chemtrails or something? What I'm saying, Steve, is the whole thing about the spiritual battle is about what are you doing today? What are you doing to create a better future? Because you can research every bloody theory on the internet and all the history and your Gilgamesh and your stone tablets and your emerald tablets and your and have we been to the moon and but it's all for nothing if you're not putting out good energy. And
I'll get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I don't know. It's just that when you start to find out a little bit, it makes you hungry for more knowledge, and it sort of makes sense of what's going on. Because what's going on at the moment, I can't make sense of it. But having said that, then I can actually, because of the stuff that we've just been talking about. But I totally get what you're saying. But that's well, I mentioned the Indigenous tribes. Because if you go back to the 1940s and 50s, no one was worried about this stuff. Life was pretty good. All right, it was harder than it is now, maybe in a different way, but life was pretty good. I mean, I grew up in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Life was good. We didn't have all the worries that we've got now. We didn't seem to have anyway.
Yeah. But perhaps we should point out that the 40s we went into a second major global conflict. all depending on who you listen to, but you could argue all orchestrated by the international banking cabal.
Mm.
And then in the 60s, and then we started to enter the nuclear threat, which again, some, depending who you read out there, some would say there's just no such thing as nuclear weapons, and they put forward a very convincing argument. I wouldn't dispute it.
Mm-hmm.
And we had all that, climbing under the table in school. If you hear the nuclear, if you hear the 3-minute warning, kids, get under the table. And so complete fear-based narrative, really.
Mm. Mm.
Do you think overall, Steve, what's happened is as humanity progresses, the whole thing here, the whole thing we're missing, the whole thing the scriptures is trying to tell us. I'm not banging a drum here. I'm just saying it seems so bloody blatantly obvious, is that if you keep going down the path of materialism and seeking pleasure, seeking your bottle of wine a night, your meat steaks, I'm entitled, I can eat what I want when I want, rather than if you listen to Jesus, he said, be frugal, be humble, don't eat every day. His big thing, Jesus, was fasting and prayer, so meditation. That what happens is your controllers, your fallen angels, your big club, whatever we want to call them, they jump on that bandwagon and they keep sending you down. They keep, they keep putting they keep controlling you with their Hollywood and their music industry and the porn industry and the food industry. And all the scriptures trying to say, guys, you're just going down. You're going down and you can't even see it until...
Because we've been given so much now that people are entitled. They do feel entitled. Because people have got so much more now than what, they ever did. Like money-wise, the cars, the houses, the clothes, you name it, holidays abroad, people have got so much now that when times get hard, when the big club puts the squeeze on us and starts taking them things away, then it creates unrest and dissatisfaction. But people do feel entitled, I think. It's almost like a demand and are missing all the rest of it. But when you go to the Amazon and see the people living in the rainforest, happy as Larry, because they don't have cars and that. Aborigines, like proper Aborigines in Australia, they're happy people. Native American Indians, I'm not talking about, the ones that have been persecuted and all the rest of it, and they're all been given bundles of money now and they're all alcoholics. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about going back to when we were so-called civilized and they was considered to be savages, all happy. I mean, Africa, I've never been to Africa, but I've watched loads about Africa. And when any backpackers and all the rest of it go to all these little places in Africa, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And they've got nothing. They struggle, but they're happy.
There's a few things going on here, Steve. Generally, you're right. Indigenous communities are sort of welcoming. They welcome you as strangers. They laugh. They play, don't they? They've also, let's not gloss over the fact they got some pretty evil rituals like the circumcision and genital mutilation and the witch doctors who will not adverse to sacrificing children, especially like albinos and mentally unwell children. That's, learning disabled kids. John St. Julian talks a lot about this. Tanzania has a big problem with it. I'm not trying to dispute what you're saying. I'm bringing it back to that question. Has evil not always been here in some form? And is the answer our spiritual battle? Yeah, you make some good
Yeah,
points.
yeah, we've just got to try and, I don't know, Chris. I mean, talking about the indigenous peoples, animals and children, their brains have not been filled with the rubbish that's in our brains. So they're able to do things. I mean, they're more um, spiritually aware, if you like. Like children are more psychic. Animals communicate without talking. Animals can navigate. We've forgotten how to do everything because our brains have just been filled up with so much rubbish. And like you said, all the material things, and so we've just lost so much that the indigenous people haven't. Animals haven't. Children until they get to a certain age haven't. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
But,
mate, you know quite a lot. I mean, children haven't had that ego bashed into them, have they?
no, that's right. No,
they're still
no.
playful. Children aren't
Yeah,
in victim mode.
no, that's right. No,
Um,
they are. It's true what they say. Children are innocent. That's it. You know, it's a shame, really, that that we have to grow up and have to deal with all this rubbish. You know.
yeah, you mentioned masonry. Was that to do with the Knights Templar? Because that's quite a interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah. The reason I mentioned Freemasonry was because talking about spiritual world, spiritualism, and the tarot and all the rest of it, and the symbolism. And yeah, there's a lot of parallels between the tarot cards and the Freemasons. If anyone looks at the cards and who is a Freemason, they'll see a lot of Masonic symbols in there. But then, are those symbols Masonic at all, or did they relate to something else that the Masons adopted? But Freemasonry does go back to ancient times, really. It's as old as the hills, and it's all around King Solomon's temple and what that was and what that meant and what went on there. Um, yeah, and calling the God the great architect. Um, it's deep. I mean, I can't go right into every detail, but it's all out there. People can look. People can even go on YouTube now and see the Masonic rituals.
Hmm.
There's loads of books that have been written on it now.
You're saying this is a
But
former Mason. I'm taking it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
you did
yeah.
tell
I
me
mean,
that. I was just clarifying. Um,
yeah,
well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? You had the Knights Templar. They brought back all this esoteric knowledge from the Crusades, and
yeah,
then
yeah. That's
they
right.
incorporated a lot of it when they built the cathedrals in Europe, as they were
Mm,
tasked to do.
yeah,
Then they were subject to persecution from the church, who I'm guessing were like, hang on, guys, you can't bring esoteric knowledge into the public field. We want people asleep. We
yeah.
don't want them enlightened. So the Templars
Exactly. Yeah,
then had to go underground, and so they took it. So
yeah,
so you they form these Freemasonic guilds,
mm,
or
yeah,
lodges. And
yeah,
of course, initially, like all things, it would have been for good purpose. But
mm,
when you've got a big club that realise they can infiltrate everything,
yeah,
whether they be trade unions, whether that be the bloody Boy Scouts, the army, the
mm,
military, that's where we got to be careful. That's where you need to start asking your questions, because
yeah,
when you've got a club that requires you to literally jump through hoops to get to another level, you then become
mm,
susceptible to corruption.
yeah. I mean, I never witnessed anything bad when I was a practicing Freemason. Technically, you're always a Freemason once you've done your 3 degrees. But while I was practicing Freemason, I mean, my dad was a Freemason, his brother was a Freemason, friends, so it was. I never saw anything bad. I never heard anything bad. It was all for good. A lot of stuff for charity and all the rest of it. And everybody thinks that you, like you say, the Joe Blogs who goes to the lodge for his meetings 4 times a year or whatever. People think it's so sinister and all the rest of it. And if you're a Freemason, you've got it made. Well, I didn't see that. You know, they all help each other out. I suppose they do if they can, but they don't treat anybody with any favour that I saw just because they're a Freemason. I'm not saying it doesn't go on. Of course it does. You know, when you've got lodges, like police lodges, like military lodges, that sort of stuff. There was a lot of Freemasonry in the fire brigade, and there was lodges that was all, you know, so if they're going there talking to each other, but then that's no different to meeting your friends down the pub, really. Like if you've got your little circle of friends and you're having a chat in the pub, go, oh yeah, I'm thinking about going for promotion, and you're talking to the bloke who's already got promotion, he can give you advice and all the rest of it. That's how I understand it. When you get to the higher levels of it,
when you're in a pub, though, Steve, you're not sworn to, you know, allegiance for life or death, are you?
No.
The reason I mention it is I think it is important. And listen, I'm not having a go at Freemasons. I know loads. My former almost father-in-law was the Grand Master of a lodge here. I know lots of military people. I've had bushcraft weekends where the 2 guys I'm with, they're Master Mason and the other guy's a Grand Mason, right? And when, you know, there was a lot of stuff that you and I would talk about, they wouldn't have a clue. We tried talking about the COVID and they were just like completely in the matrix, mate, completely, right? So this is not, I'm not suggesting like as individuals or as a thing that you know, they purposely are up to something untoward. I'm just drawing light to the fact that, say you've got I forget that, say the Commandant General of the Royal Marines is a Mason, and you've got the lead NATO guy is a Mason, and they're both very high up, and this guy's saying to that guy, listen, Steve, you know, we want this war with Ukraine. I've been told by the people above me we are going to have it. So could you please get some, you know, do you see what I'm saying? You can understand why people would say, that's not good. Your military should have allegiance to the British people. They shouldn't have allegiance to an esoteric club where they have to jump through hoops in order to get the thumbs up. That's, I would say, where it's it falls on questionable ground. Let's say. I'm not.
Yeah,
no, I don't think anyone would say that Bill the Baker, who's gonna, you know, who's gonna give some free bread for Steve the carpenter, who's gonna come and fix his door. I don't think anyone cares about that. But then of course, we've also got the Kabbalic Masonry.
Yeah.
Right? That's something different. This is where it, you know, this is, I mean, people are right to question, why is all this symbolism in films? Why is there so much Babylonian symbolism? Why is the checkerboard, you know, you see it in so many movies? Why, like the Minions, it's a children's cartoon. They actually have the Freemasonic G on the cartoon characters' overalls, and they're called Minions. What, you know, do people not see what's going on there?
Yeah.
You know,
they've actually, why they're doing it, though.
They've actually got, a lot of these minions have got one eye. So
but I don't know why they're doing it. I don't know why they're putting that out there. I don't know what they're hoping to achieve by doing that. I don't know. I can't.
Do you know a lot about Luciferian doctrine?
No, not really, Chris. I know a little bit.
So their thing is, if they put it in front of you and you're
Yeah.
too stupid to see it, fuck you. Under Luciferian doctrine, they've got
Right.
the right to fuck you over. So I'm just putting
Okay.
a scenario here, and
Yeah.
I'm. This is just a scenario, right? But
Right.
imagine a big club. We're talking the big boys. We're talking the heavy Babylonian,
Mm.
Kabbalists that clearly move and shake in the world. Because just look at who owns everything.
Yeah.
If they want to laugh at Freemasonry, you know why Hitler kicked Freemasonry out of Germany? Is he could see the big club had just infiltrated and controlled it. That was
Yeah.
it. The same as the trade unions. It was the
Yeah.
trade unions that pulled the rug out from under Germany's footing in the First World War. And Hitler was in the trenches, and he could see those boys, them brave German boys. They had all equipment, the top gear. They had the top soldiery. They was going to win that conflict. All right, this is just stuff I've read and I've researched and stuff. And what the trade unions did is they didn't want them boys to win that war. They wasn't ready for that. I don't know if it's because they needed the Second World War or whatever, but they weren't going to win that one. So they got the trade unions to pull the rug out back home by starting to spread disinterest in the war, to starting to spread uncertainty about it, and people basically turned on the troops. And of course, if you're trade unions, you've got a lot of sway because you can control the flow of provisions to the front line. I'm theorizing, right? And so when you see like the minions, is that the club telling you what's going on, but people just think it's a kid's cartoon. So, do you see what I mean? Because do you remember?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Before the events in New York and Washington, those big events that we don't say the little number.
Yeah.
Do you remember that everyone was like, "This was in a film. This was in a cartoon. This was in The Simpsons. This was in that number that that number slash and the two little numbers that was in." I'm not saying this, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that is what they say Luciferian doctrine is. If they put it in front of you and you're too dumb, if you're the useless eaters, the dumb animals that you still don't get it, then they can do it to you. So
right, okay, yeah, that makes a bit of sense. Yeah, that sort of explains to an extent why they're doing it. Because the other thing was on The Simpsons as well, wasn't it? The last 3 years worth of, or 4 years. That was on The Simpsons.
It was also in a series, mate. There was a series called, I think it was called The Dead Zone. It was years ago. It was 2002.
Yeah.
And they discussed this scary thing that probably came from a monkey, and that if you took it, and they actually said a certain thing that begins with chlore, that if you took this chlore stuff, it would this was 2002. So
wow. Yeah. And now we've got the latest one, haven't we? They've just started the Mpox.
Yeah. The next one.
Yeah, that's the next one. Yeah.
And
again, it's just to shut people up, isn't it? It's like, when people start to notice things and question things, we'll throw that at them. That'll keep them busy. That will tie them up for a while, and then we might be able to put something inside them that's going to,
Yeah, mate. We could talk forever on the medical narrative. It's a big part of the big club control system is getting you to live as a victim.
Yeah.
And most people do. Most people don't think they've got any control over their own health. Whereas
Yeah.
there's also people that would say, no, you absolutely have. You know, it's your choice. If you wanna, your well-being is your choice. It's just that simple. And
Yeah.
but that doesn't make, that doesn't make big money for big corporations, and it doesn't keep the population in fear. So.
No, no. I mean, for the spiritualism and the meditation and everything else, and the pineal gland and the third eye. The reason I was sort of practicing that sort of stuff now is to try to achieve an altered state of consciousness or a higher level of consciousness, and it can be achieved. But the native people, the tribesmen and women, they do the same thing with their rituals and their plants and their dances. They get to a higher state of consciousness. And I don't know if that's something that they've tried to knock out of us over the years. What's your thoughts on that, Chris?
Steve, I'll answer that, and then I'll tell you what. Are you okay if we go over to our locals channel for 10 minutes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem.
Because then we can speak just completely freely over there. There's certain things that obviously we can't say on this platform, so we'll go over to locals. The whole the thing with it, so here's the thing. You are unity, right? Your unity consciousness, your universe experiencing itself subjectively through this evolutionary creation called the body, right? And the senses that have developed through whatever. And so most people go along and they start their life trapped in the matrix. They don't realize this. They're not supposed to. As such, things like plant medicine and hallucinogenics can give people a kickstart into seeing that, oh, Jesus Christ, there's way more to this than I've ever been told. Bloody hell. And it can, because what does the pineal and the pituitary gland, well, one of the things they produce, I'm not sure which one it is, but is DMT. Well, that's what you get from a plant medicine experience, right? And friends out there, can I just say, we're not promoting the use of any such no, not at all. We're just talking about it. Well, here's the thing. What it then comes back to, Steve, is if your divinity, you don't want nothing between you and God, of which you are. You don't want I'm just going to say this, don't take offense, but you don't need crystals, you don't need a TV, you don't need YouTube, you don't need substances, you don't, what you want is the most clear form of, you've got to live a puristic lifestyle. I don't mean, you've got to be a twat. I just mean simple diet, plenty of exercise, lots of meditation, which is just communing with the one. When you start to confuse that by putting stuff in front of you, whether that be, a medium or an object or a church or a preacher or you're just putting baggage in between you and your own divinity, and you've created this confusion, this confusing thing that you're now looking at, instead of just realizing what it's like to live as an enlightened individual, which is lovely. I now really struggle when I have a beer, Steve.
Right.
And the reason is, it's great getting high with your mates and laughing your ass off and being a twat, or you could argue it's not, but here's the thing. It then steals your serotonin and your DMT for 3 days. And in that 3 days, even though you might not necessarily be suffering a hangover or a come down, you're not firing as that enlightened person, and it's horrible. It's horrible because you've got to go through 3 days of just existing, of being like, quote unquote, the normal that you've tried your whole life to escape from. So I would say that. I would say that. I think a lot of things with Indigenous communities is it probably gets very boring, mate, living in a tribe in the jungle, doing the same thing day in, day out, and that they probably look forward to getting off their heads a bit. And you know, shaman traditionally have used quote unquote medicine to get visions, but you know, we have got to remember, whether we like it or not, that all these substances are toxins, they're poisons. Yes, they might give us a pleasant this but they're essentially, you know, you're poisoning your beautiful system. You might get something in the short term from that, the same as when you turbocharge your car. You can go faster for a little bit, but it's going to cost your engine ultimately. So that's what I'd say. Steve, let's go to locals. Friends at home, if you could like and subscribe, that would be mental. What I'll do is I'll put a link for Steve's book in the comments. It's this book here, so you can go and grab yourself a copy. Look, Steve's written 2 books now. This one's called When the Bells Go Down, but we'll just put a link to his Amazon below so you can grab a copy. And please support us on locals, folks, for the big picture. Much love.
Thanks, Chris.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die